not anymore about being the fastest. It's currently about having really amazingly convenient offerings for the customers, but also delivering that for a good cost price tag.
I always love it when the person founding a company who's providing a service also has seen the merchant side, the brand side, because that's immensely helpful to determine the pain points.
Yeah. If you have built an own brand, you can play with that brand. The people who buy your products actually want your products.
Yeah.
So for sure, you're willing to wait one more day, but the experience has to be perfect, very professional, based on retention.
What are 3 top mistakes that brands do make in cross-border commerce?
Choosing carriers is absolutely key. So you want a very well-known and reliable carrier in the market or in the region of the market.
Welcome to the EGN Podcast, powered by the e-commerce Berlin Expo. I'm your host, Efe von Thenen, and today I'm joined by Thomas Hagemann, founder and co-CEO of Seven Sanders, one of the leading cross-border shipping platforms in Europe. Today we'll be diving into the landscape of cross-border logistics, the challenges businesses face in expanding across Europe, and what the future holds for this industry. We'll explore how different logistics setups can help businesses successfully expand to other markets. We will also discuss ways for European retailers to compete with fast-growing Asian competitors. If you're looking for insights on scaling your brand across Europe, or if you're curious about how logistics can drive growth and customer satisfaction, you're in the right place. Thomas, welcome to our studio. You're also from Berlin, so probably it wasn't a long way for you. Did you come by bike or did you take the S-Bahn?
No, we're a little bit neither actually. Would have been a little bit far for me today with bike. Came from Mitte, from our office. Came with a car. Pretty classic. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you. For those of us that don't know you yet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Thomas Hagemann, my name. I'm one of the founders of Seven Sanders. We started our journey, almost 10 years ago, end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Prior to that, I've been studying beginning of the 2000s in Karlsruhe, down in southern Germany, via Zurich, made my way to Berlin, where I first worked as a consultant. That was around the Lehman crisis. Everything was a little bit down, so a lot of my friends and me ended up being consultants, which was actually a great time. Learned a lot. Did a lot of projects around supply chain management, logistics. And then met my co-founder Johannes again, who is actually a friend of mine all the way through from our studies. He came to Berlin and became the COO of an online shop, former online shop of Project A in Berlin. And that was kind of like how the journey started.
I always love it when the person founding a company who's providing a service also has seen the merchant side, the brand side, because that's immensely helpful to determine the pain points.
Yeah.
And actually having been on that side I think is just super helpful. That being said, Seven Sanders is one of the companies that is quite big in the market in terms of cross-border shipping. You provide a variety of services. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the company. You said 2014 was the founding. If you can tell us about the positioning of the company and what you guys do, what kind of services you provide, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so look, as you said, it's always helpful if one of the founders brings the problem. There was Johannes. He struggled a little bit internationalizing cross-border deliveries of wine, actually, which, to be honest, is still a little bit of pain. but working much better than 10 years ago. Having got the job to internationalize cross-border back in 2014, never forget, it's quite a long time ago, as all the things we experience today are more or less exponentially. There wasn't a lot. We were kind of first mover in what we offered by that time. What we wanted to do is we wanted to solve the problem that online shops, especially medium-sized ones, were locked in solutions by 3, 4, 5 players. So basically the big asset players moving parcels around Europe. And if you only have the chance to negotiate products of 4 or 5 players, prices basically are very, very much the same. Services also don't vary too much. So this is where we saw an opportunity and wanted to open up the world of European carriers to all of those online shops, because if you travel through Europe, if you have lived in another country, it's super diverse in any way, but it's also diverse when it comes to logistics. So in Spain, in Poland, in Italy, in Scandinavia, people prefer different carriers than we do. So you can't just think that you're from Germany. 80% of Germans love carrier ABC. That counts for all others.
Yeah, definitely. And also, people even pay at the door in Poland, for example. There are a couple of differences in terms of the entire journey. You know, and I think we will also touch upon that in a bit. In 2024, the journeys have become so advanced that in many cases you don't even know where your parcel will come from. Right, as a customer ordering something from an online shop, which is completely localized, has the German language, and looks like it just looks like a local shop. I had that experience recently. My childhood dream was to have this one Rosie's brand rollerblades, and back then somehow I couldn't afford it as a kid, and just kept talking about it with my wife, and I got that as a present to myself. So I ordered it from an online shop that was seemingly just German, right? So I ordered it, and the parcel came from Czech Republic or something like that. And I ended up waiting and waiting and waiting. It took much longer than I was used to, and then wrote a message, and then the guy just sends me an email. Hey, by the way, you have to pay by per email with your credit card.
Wow.
No, I'm like, I thought I paid for that already. So it's like, and not always, the journey is not always as straightforward as you would wish. And then the fact that my parcel took so long made me like kind of dissatisfied. But then again, I couldn't find that product anywhere else. So for me, I was kind of landlocked. The last couple, I think a good point to start here is the last 5 years has been very much marked by lots of changes in the German and also in Europe in the e-commerce market, right? So, and you've been running the company for about more than 10 years. So how would you describe the last 5 years in terms of cross-border shipping? What are some of the developments that you think
it's actually quite interesting. I think especially so before I describe the last 5 years, let's take the 5 years before that, because they describe also a lot. Like the 5 years before that, there was only one way. So e-commerce was growing heavily, but especially also steadily. Cross-border and domestic, and an ecosystem that's growing that steadily has the time, even though it's growing heavily, to continuously improve on certain things. So 215 to 220, I would describe as extreme professionalization of delivery processes, delivery offerings, also with the help of companies like ours, but for sure also other companies. Optimization of customer experiences with technology, messaging, better tracking and tracing solutions, etc. And if you look at the last mile, definitely speeding up, and speed became crucial. So being fast became crucial. Those were the days when there was like next day was the big thing. Amazon also pushed this. But what happened then, and those are the last 5 years, is that COVID kicked in. and everything changed because suddenly people were, we saw this with our customers and then also with the consumers approaching our customers in a different way. People were suddenly just happy that they received the parcels. So actually everything slowed down. So what happened in COVID is that the volumes exploded. People and companies just kind of tried to survive, tried to manage the volumes. Entire networks broke down.
Yeah.
And no one actually in COVID complained when the parcel took like 3 to 4 days because everyone, basically e-commerce was the lifeline, right? You couldn't go to the cities anymore. You weren't allowed to go anywhere. In Germany, it was actually still relaxed. But if you lived in another country, like in France or in Italy, you were really locked in your flat.
Yeah.
And if your lifeline is e-commerce, you're not complaining whether things come tomorrow or the day after. You're super happy that things work.
Yeah.
And somehow that then led to the next phase where COVID wasn't the big push and uplift that everyone thought. It was just like a bump. So everything went back to the normal growth.
2022.
Yeah, still like exciting and great growth that we see nowadays, but everything got a little bit stuck in terms of volumes. So now everyone is currently due to the general mood in the economy, companies trying to basically also fight what's coming from overseas. European companies trying to understand what's coming from Asia, understand the pressure. So currently, again, it's not anymore about being the fastest. It's currently about having really amazingly convenient offerings for the customers, but also delivering that for a good cost price tag.
Yeah.
Right. And it shall be fast, but we don't see at the moment this pure next day focus in Europe. We can also say everything normalized, and companies figured out, okay, that 2 days to that country is perfect. 1 to 2 days to that country is perfect. Maybe to Switzerland, I got to be next day because competition is high, etc.
Yeah.
So everything got a little bit more settled and normalized.
Mm-hmm. How many, before we go on to the next question, how many companies do you help with your solution?
Oh, it's a 3-digit number of companies. We're focusing on medium-sized to large enterprises.
Yeah.
And also offering our solutions with our new Flex product to small customers, down to actually very small companies that only have like 30, 40 parcels a day as a mix to Europe. But in general, we in the core focus to medium-sized online shops.
Yeah. So the 10, 15 million euro yearly revenue, is that for you?
Yeah, that's rather probably on the lower end. Yeah, but that's definitely where we start helping.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a lot of 3-digit million companies as well, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. You mentioned that what I found very interesting is that the price sensitivity. We know that in markets such as France, Italy, Spain, they tend to be a bit more on the price sensitive end. And when you look at Germany, still around 50% of the consumers are price sensitive, but there's like a significant chunk and more than 30% of people that look at the quality, and some of them, around 9%, look at environmental factors, sustainability, and all these things. So in Germany, you have a kind of a different outlook. I think the interesting thing is, like, at the beginning, especially with these Chinese, Asian players like Temu, Shein, but also AliExpress and the others, and they are exponentially growing their market share in these European countries. And I think to a certain extent, they bring a whole different attitude. Like the journeys are different, but also the way they approach cross-border commerce is very different. You know, the experience feels quite local. As you said, it takes a few days, but it's getting faster and faster. They have local warehouses nowadays, and I even got a Temu advertisement that you can buy a small bugger, you know, like a, I don't know, it's a excavator or something, like even like for, that must come from somewhere local. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the business models are, I think, what's never to be underestimated. If you look at these companies, they're comparably young,
Yeah.
especially on the scale they do it. So I would never underestimate how they are able to change in the future.
Yeah.
So if you look at the cross-border value chain, yes, it's delivering parcels from around the globe in 4 to 5, 6, 7 days, which is pretty impressive. No matter where the pressure will come from, either governmental, that they will be forced to ship from Europe, or whether it will be customs regulations that will force them to ship from here, or the consumers that want to have it faster. I would think that they will be able to adjust, and some of those companies that you mentioned also building big European footprints, especially in Eastern Europe, starting to run own warehouses, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely challenging. I think what's also to be understood is who is the customer base, right?
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people, and also looking at myself, I'm not really buying on these platforms, and I'm not sure it's because that I don't want to. It's just because it's very hard for them to reach me. So the way I work, and the way I use the internet, they could reach me through Google Ads, but e.g. I'm not on TikTok. So what I want to say is they have a very strong young customer base.
Yeah.
That doesn't really overthink. Okay, maybe these products, they're not like made in the way they should be, or made by the people who should be working in the facilities, or what's the control there, what's the labor law there. You got to understand the people that are brought to these apps maybe are also pretty young.
Yeah.
So sometimes the comparisons, I'm not sure if it's right to say, okay, I don't know who buys at Temu. I'm not buying at Temu. Who buys there and who buys on that platform? Because I think there's a big difference in the people aged 25, 30 to 50 and the people aged 16 to 25.
Yeah.
So I think I think these platforms will show that they're very flexible. They will adjust to European footprints, I'm pretty sure. They will also show that they can deliver at faster speed. When it comes to the product quality, I can't really comment on that. But what you read and what you hear is that it's not as high as you are used to here in Europe when you source when you source locally. But I would definitely say to the European e-retailers, it's definitely something to get used to and something to look out for.
Yeah. In your opinion, are there also like learnings that we can drive for German brands, drive from the likes of Shein and Temu in terms of cross-border shipping?
To learn what we can learn.
Yeah.
I mean, Temu is a different game in terms of who owns the stock. But if we look at Shein and maybe take the fashion market, and then you can compare it to local platforms, maybe About You or Texaland or whoever. I think one of the big differences is do you sell from your stock, that you have stock here in Europe,
Yeah.
or do you even sell in a way like make to order? And I don't mean like pure make to order, but maybe you sell in batches that are produced in shorter cycles,
Yeah.
so that you don't actually build up that much stock. Because one of the big disadvantages that you have as a big platform here in Europe, if you have to source in like these 3 months or 6 month cycles, you gotta decide in summer how much stock are you gonna buy in for the winter collection, etc., etc. And a company like Shein, what we see and what you can read is that they kind of like have test orders online for certain products, and when they see they're clicked in a certain ratio, and when they bought in a certain speed, then they start actually producing certain lots. Yeah. And that when the piece is sold out, it's sold out. Yeah. And that gives you a massive disadvantage in terms of working capital and cash flow.
Yeah, and so for European brands, German brands, to be successful in today's time, we mentioned differences in price sensitivity,
Mm-hmm.
differences in the expectation. You mentioned that a next day is not really in the focus anymore. What is important in terms of shipments so that you can provide a top-notch customer experience to your customers? Let's start with Germany, and then maybe you can share a couple of anecdotes. If you're internationalized, if you're catering to customers in several different markets in Europe, what is important today?
Yeah. So, quite frank, it's still the same. Actually, it was important 10 years ago, but maybe the solutions have changed. So, most important thing is that you understand your customer. It sounds super basic, but you gotta, as an online shop, you gotta understand your customer, because the customer is different whether you sell like a subscription of diapers that maybe is sent to you once a month, or whether you sell USB cables where you basically buy one and then maybe if you lose it you buy another one in half a year or 1 year in time, or if you're running a fashion shop and your goal is that your consumer buys like once a month or once every 6 weeks. So then you got to understand your competition and you got to understand the local specialities when it comes to logistics and deliveries. So having said that, it will come down to how fast and with which services does your best competition sell similar or same products. And that also brings you to actually question number one: who's your customer? Understanding your customer. If you're selling a random product, like a white t-shirt from a big brand, you're reselling it, then it will probably come down to price and delivery speed and cost for delivery, right? Because your local competitor will sell it for free delivery and within 1 day. Whereas if you have built an own brand, you can play with that brand. The people who buy your product actually want your products. So for sure you're willing to wait 1 more day, but the experience has to be perfect, very professional, based on retention. So aiming for the consumer to like, wow, this experience and delivery really fits to the product that I received for the first time. I really like this brand. I want to reorder. So choosing carriers is absolutely key. So you want a very well-known and reliable carrier in the market or in the region of the market. So we talked about it earlier. If you look at Italy, they're kind of like two Italys, the northern, the southern parts, when it comes to delivery speed, when it comes to who is the better carrier, who is the best carrier.
Interesting.
So that's something like.
How is it actually in the north?
Yeah, in the northern part, it's for sure also coming from northern Germany, or let's say from Germany, from the northern part of Europe. For sure, it's also distance-wise much closer. So European retailers coming from the north normally injecting their parcels somewhere in the region of Milan, for example. For sure, parcels in the north of Italy will be faster then. But if you have a carrier who has a great like asset network down to Thals, you can still be next day down there, and latest maybe on Sicily or Naples area 2 days later. So you can optimize and you can really check on the zip code level which carrier fits best to which region, and then steer it that way. That's how the big shippers do.
And which markets do you support? And so let's say I'm a German brand that I want to work with you guys to develop an internationalization strategy and tap into markets like in Central European markets, including Poland and etc., but also France, Italy. Which markets do you cover in total?
So we cover all of the EU countries. Plus also the ones with customs borders, such as Switzerland, the UK, and Norway. So that's not a problem for us. Actually, the other way around. We have a very digitized, fully automated customs process, which we set up with the customer once, and then you can really ship to those countries, which are highly interesting, especially Switzerland, when you look at the basket size, the buying power of the people in the country. you can ship to Switzerland with us as if you were shipping to Austria or to France, right? So that's a big advantage. We don't have any restrictions. To be honest, the countries we work the most, we ship the most to, obviously also the countries where our customers ship the most to, which are normally the big economies, such as Poland, Scandinavia, UK, the Benelux, France, Spain, Italy, Austria, Switzerland. I would say those are among like the biggest buyers of e-commerce goods in Europe.
Can you name a couple of success stories that brands, for example, that you helped and they were able to really tap into new markets successfully?
Yeah, I think some of them you can also see in the internet. I mean, I think the latest bigger success story was together with ESN, which is like a supplement brand, we helping them expand in Europe, deliver in the perfect way to the households in Europe. This is also interesting because there also Switzerland, UK, also very interesting markets for them, but especially also a solution that fits all markets in Europe and that works in an easy way, meaning that you can hand over all the parcels in one go, and also solutions that adapt to the volumes because it's a high growing brand. It's a high growth company. That needs adaptation in faster cycles than bigger companies who have settled maybe for a decade or so. That's an example. Otherwise, more corporate company from the sports segment is Essex, which is also international story from the Netherlands, shipping cross-border B2C parcels, but also B2B because they're also delivering all the stores in Europe. With their shoes and clothes, so that's always been like a huge success story. Helping a brand like that.
Up until now, we've talked about companies that are expanding to other, that are just expanding to other European countries, but also there are a lot of companies that already have expanded, but they have a lot of complexity. How can you help those? For example, you have a brand that you have a multinational brand, like you are in Germany, but you're in DACH region. You're also in Italy, Spain, UK, Nordics, whatever. But there's a lot of complexity. Maybe you chose the path of in-housing. How can you help companies that already have an internationalized business in terms of what do you do so innovatively that you can help them get faster, get more efficient, and so on and so forth?
So I think there are like 2 to 3, probably 3 different cases, like black and white. For sure, there's like a million different cases when potential customers approach us. But let's say there are like 3 cases. So the one case is a young but well-funded company wants to internationalize, but hasn't done it yet. But has like quite an amount of capital to actually want to go fast, very big into certain countries. That was basically not the one you were talking about. But number 2, that's probably the common one. Companies who have started internationalizing, what we see from Germany normally first to the same language, so Austria, Switzerland. Then often, because it's a big economy, to France, Italy, Spain, depending on the product. They have scaled to like a certain size, but now they're realizing, okay, to make the next steps, we have to basically compete locally. We have to be as good, as fast, as cheap in delivery as our local competitors are.
Also returns, probably.
Also, great topic. Also, when it comes to fashion, offering a very localized return. You know, if you receive a parcel from a German online shop living in southern Italy, you don't want to go to like this random carrier that you have never heard of, or to this international carrier who has only 2 or 3 pickup points, 50 k's around my house. or you don't want to pay 20 euros for a return, right?
Yeah,
And the shop also doesn't want to and can't afford.
exactly.
So this is where localized returns come into the game, and those are the things we're looking at. So we're looking at the current solution. Normally, companies who have grown fast have set up like a 3, 4, 5 country European footprint.
Yeah.
They are actually all very interested in now questioning their carrier setup, optimizing it. Yeah, we check the current speed, we check the prices. How can we improve this? How can we make it faster? How can we maybe shift the cutoff times to later in the evening,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons also a lot of brands from Germany are interested in internationalization right now is also the stagnation we've seen in the German market. And probably in comparison, there are some more lucrative markets in Europe. Can you say a few words about that, whether or not you see some opportunities in some other markets? So if I'm a brand, let's say, we talked a lot about fashion. You gave me the example of ESN, which provides sporting supplementation.
Yeah.
And so maybe some examples from your database where you see, hey, we see a lot of opportunities in Switzerland, for example, where the stagnation is not in focus.
Yeah, definitely. So the way I see internationalization, it's a very classic way also of diversification.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a broader footprint in Europe, you're far more secure when it comes to okay, if the one country slows down in economy, if the purchasing power in that country goes down, I still have the others, and I can basically juggle my marketing budget into those countries.
Definitely.
So we see companies who have a broader European footprint being far more stable in overall sales and overall revenue.
Yeah.
Because you can, in a slowdown in Germany at the moment, you can basically say, okay, Germany consumers slow at the moment, marketing budget conversion is not that great as we have seen it before. So let's focus for 2024, 25 on other countries. Maybe in France or in Spain, especially in Switzerland, inflation has never hit that hard as it did in Germany. So people, and then also the currency very much in favor of the Swiss people. So you can really do a lot of nice gross profits in those markets, and that's the advantage of online shops who have set up a broader customer footprint.
It's like an ETF portfolio, right?
Yeah,
so you're like diversified.
Unless it's completely US based. And you can't change it. Yeah.
So MSCI
it's
World
great at the moment. It's great at the moment, but let's see what happens next week.
Yeah, we don't know yet. Super interesting. You mentioned we talked about the mid segment that you're catering to, beginning from, let's say, 10 million euro yearly revenue up until whatever. But you also started a product called 7 Flex. And your I think the idea is to also cater to smaller guys. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So look, normally when you want to be fast and you want to ship with a perfect carrier, it's actually, the thought is pretty simple. If you want to be fast, you mustn't touch your parcels too much, right?
Yeah.
So if you touch your parcel, it means your parcel stops. Yeah. So that's what normal asset players do. They bring parcels to a sorting center, to the next sorting center, to the next sorting center.
Yeah.
So every time there's a break, which slows the parcel. So what we normally do is we try to bring the parcels as directly as possible into the countries and hand it over to the last mile carriers in the destination country. The problem is if shops are still like at the beginning or only have a handful of cross-border parcels in total. It's very hard in an efficient way, meaning cheap or cost effective, to bring these handful of parcels straight into the countries. You can't afford it. I mean, it will not be like a great solution. So we have found a way with 2 sorting points in Germany to actually steer low volume retailer parcels through Germany into the European hubs, but only touching them once.
Yeah.
And delivering faster or maximum as fast as the current solution, with better rates and better services on the last mile. So what the reseller only has to do is basically take all European parcels, hand them over to us as a bunch, and we take care of them and bring them to the best carriers in Europe.
Yeah. To wrap things up, I will ask one of the questions a bit. I will turn it around. What are 3 top mistakes that brands do make in cross-border commerce?
The top 3 mistakes. I think mistake number 1 is still, maybe it was more at the beginning, but still happens. Mistake number 1 is still not localizing in a perfect manner. So having your web shop right, understanding the platforms in the countries, knowing
like my rollerblade example.
Maybe not selling something in Switzerland for 99.99 because the smallest coin is 0.5 or 0.5. So people will think you kind of a fraud company.
Interesting.
Number 2, understand which countries will, especially in these days, where not everything is about revenue anymore, but more about profits and EBITDA and being stable and growing in a sustainable way, is understanding the countries, the markets that actually bring profits to your goods. And that often are countries like Switzerland, and understanding that you don't need super complicated customs processes anymore, because technology has really overtaken and technology is able to solve most of these challenges. And you can have a setup where you can sell to the UK or to Switzerland or to Norway and tackle new markets. I think this is something I would really put on that list of 3. And the third point is really talk to your consumers. Which carriers do they want? What solutions do they really need? And more importantly, what solutions do they not want?
Exactly.
So why offering something super fast if the consumer actually wants it or doesn't care if it's 1 day slower, but with the perfect carrier?
Yeah.
So really try understand what do my consumers for my products want? What's the best carrier? And I think if you do that, if you localize, if you check on the profitable markets first and understand the best solutions in the markets, and if you understand what the consumers in the countries want, that's for cross-border e-commerce, I guess, the most important.
That's an excellent way to wrap things up. Thank you so much for being part of the show and for the insights that you shared. And see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the EGN Podcast. If you found our discussion insightful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Your support helps us grow and improve our content. See you next time.